Good evening all. For people who don't know me, I'm Yves Bernier. I have been member of the club for 24 years now, and I happen to fly. And I've done my instructor rating because I got to a level where I had enough hours to do it and decided that was the next best thing to do, so I decided to do it. So before we start, just remember that the exit are the back.
Check the slip.
Count the number of rows for the exit.
So what we're going to go through tonight is about the mass briefing requirements to obtain your instructor rating. Just
Is there going to be a test on this?
Yeah, there will be at the end. And there's 22 mass briefing I have to do. Some of them are 20 minutes, some of them are 40 minutes. I'll give you you have to do your full-on whiteboard session. You can't just take things that already exist. They give you a whiteboard and you have to build your whiteboard. And this is to make sure that you understand the whole thing that you're doing. And as part of the test too, you have to involve the student. If you can't create an interaction, then you'll be in trouble. So as part of the test, you make sure that you involve people. So please tonight, if you have any questions, just ask them as we go. And I'll show you the mass briefing template, and we'll go through a sample. The first lesson is called effects of control. We'll go through that. After that, I'll describe two other things that happen with helicopters: mass bumping and dynamic rollover. I won't go through the full briefing because it's quite long, especially for the mass bumping, so I might be skipping a few things, but there are interesting things that happen with helicopters, and because you like physics and electronics and all sort of things, then you'll understand that, and I think you'll enjoy that, so we'll go through this. So the template is like this. For any mass briefing, and this is coming from the military in US, so it's been used for many years. Basically, you've got a title, aim, definition, motivation, the reason why we learn, the overview, objective, revision. You've got the content of that briefing, the exercise, what it is we're going to do, and threat and error management. This is a whiteboard that I've created for one of the mass briefing. This one is for hover, so you can see here the aim, motivation, overview, objective, revision, the content in the middle, and you've got here the exercise and threat and error management. This is what it looks like. Some people are neater than others. Apparently I'm in the middle. There are some people that can't put things in order. There are other people that write like they use a typewriter or something. This one here, I just happened to be in a different classroom where I had a very narrow board. So what I've done here is I've put my left part here, the right part here, and flick over for the middle part of the board. This one is for the transitions. And transition is the most complex briefing because it involves a lot of things. And the transition, for if you're interested, is how we go from you're on hover to you're flying. There's quite a few things that happen in the aerodynamics and everything on the helicopter whilst you're going from the hover to forward flight, and vice versa, coming back from forward flight and coming back to a hover. And everybody developed their own style of how they draw a helicopter. Some people do very nice one, mine is just okay, and some people do very ugly ones. Effects of control, lesson number 1. What we're going to do is, the aim of this lesson is to learn the primary and secondary effects of the primary controls in forward flight. We're not at this time interested in hovering. Hovering comes in lesson 5 or 6. This is about a helicopter flying at normal speed in the air. The reason why we learn that is it's the foundation of all your flying, so you have to go through this. So as an overview, what we're going to do is we're going to look at the objective, we'll do a bit of revision, then we're going to look at the primary control and what they do. We're going to look at what the secondary effect of these controls are, and we'll go through the exercise, competency standard, and threat and error management. Objective, at the end of the lesson, you should be able to recall the 4 primary controls of a helicopter, and you should recall the primary effect of the 4 controls. Revision. It's your first lesson, so there's nothing to revise really. If it was your second, third, etc., we always come back to the first lesson. However, There are things that happen in your normal life when you're not a flyer that relates to when we fly. So, hill climb. If you're driving a car and there's a hill in front of you, and let's say it's not too steep, the car doesn't need to change speed or you don't have to change gear. What happens if you do nothing?
Car slow down.
Yeah. So, what do you do to avoid it? Slow down.
Give it more accelerator.
When I press more accelerator, does the RPM goes up?
Depends on the
Depends
car.
if you're
If you don't change speed, so if the car's going up at 60 kilometers an hour,
Depends if it's an auto.
yeah, but let's say it's a manual, as it goes up, you need more power. You produce more power by pressing on the accelerator. The RPM doesn't change, but you will produce more power. Steering wheel with a car. When you park a car, how much of the steering wheel are you, let's say parallel parking, how much of the wheel will you move?
Lots.
If you're on a freeway at 100 kilometers an hour, how much do you move?
Lots
But-
once.
Good point. Same thing. But the thing you have to remember, if you do a parallel parking, you actually do pretty much the same thing as what you do when you overtake someone. But to parallel park, you do a lot of that. When you overtake someone, you just go like this on the freeway and like this to come back. So you have to remember, today we will be flying at 100 kilometers an hour. When you play with the controls, like when you're on a freeway, you have to be very, very gentle. Because everything you do is amplified because of the speed. Traffic report on radio. When you take off in the morning from home in your car, most of us turn on the radio and listen to the traffic. And we may change our route depending on where they say it's blocked, correct?
Rehearsal bridge is blocked again, go by the deviation.
Exactly.
That report?
Well, with aircraft, the good thing is when we listen to the radio, we actually hear all the traffic that's happening. Because we hear people talking to the control tower, we hear them taxiing, so we know they're going to take off. When we're coming back to the airport, we can hear people talking to the tower. So at the beginning, on day one, you'll hear nothing on the radio. The only thing you'll hear is the noise of the engine. But I just want you to get used through the next 50 hours of training you're going to get used to listen in the background what's happening on the radio, because that will build up your awareness of the environment and to see where things are going to come in and out. Controls. There are 3, but 4. There are 3 primary controls and a 4th one that we'll talk about as well that we are interested on in a helicopter. The first one is the cyclic. The cyclic is a stick that comes up between the two of us. It's a T-bar arrangement like this, and it swivels. The swivels has no purpose at all in terms of flying. The only reason why it swivels is for you to be able to adjust where you want the control to be. And also to share, because this is yours, this is mine, and when we're two are flying, we can actually share the control. It's your turn, it's my turn. A lot of people get to the habit that they're so used to see a yoke or a steering wheel that when they want to turn, they actually do this. It does absolutely nothing. And I'm telling you now, and in about an hour we will be in a helicopter, and you'll do exactly that. You'll be turning. Everybody does it. This thing you take in your hand, and it moves in 360 degrees. It moves about in every direction. The range of the control is about that much. But we never use that much control. The reason why it has that range is for the loading configuration. If you are 2 people in it, it's here, full of fuel, a bit too much luggage. You're on your own, it's about there. But when you fly, it will only move about that much.
Right.
So just keep this in mind. What the control does, it controls what we call the attitude. The attitude of a helicopter is when the nose goes down or goes up. And all that is happening from the disc level. When you put forward pressure, and I didn't say when you push on the control, when you put forward pressure on the control, the nose of the helicopter will go down. If you put aft pressure, the nose will go up. That's the primary effect of the cyclic. The second primary effect is when you put a bit of forward pressure, what's going to happen is the thrust that used to keep it up will be a bit forward, therefore you will start gaining airspeed. If you put a bit more forward pressure, guess what? You go faster. And if you put aft pressure, you'll go slower. So this controls the altitude and the airspeed, and you've got an airspeed indicator which we only use for reference. The way we actually fly is by looking where the horizon is in the bubble. So when I'll give you the control, I'll say this is 60 knot altitude. Look outside where the horizon is in the bubble, keep it there. And if you put a bit of forward pressure on the cyclic, what's going to happen is the horizon will climb in the bubble, and then I'll show you where 80 knot is, and then you put it there and it'll go 80 knots. And if I ask you to go back to 60, you just have to put a bit of aft pressure on the cyclic until the bar comes back to where it was. We've got a compass here, and we usually use a compass as a reference. The third primary effect of the cyclic is the heading. Side pressure will bring the disc to the side, and the helicopter will start turning as if you were in a motorcycle when you lean. Left pressure, the helicopter will turn to the left. Remember, doing this does nothing, and the control doesn't go that way either. So some of us, or you, are sitting down in the helicopter and you can feel like trying to twist the handle. It will not twist. It's really sideways. And we're talking about side pressure, very, very smooth controls. Any question on cycling?
Yeah, why does the T-bar? Two people wide, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
It seems odd having a handle here when it's controlling something there.
Well, so there's two different designs. Some helicopters have a stick on both sides that comes between the leg. It's easier and simpler to build this, less weight, because basically it fits under the leg. It's the same setup that you've got under, if you think about it. The other good thing about it, it's very easy to get in and out, because you've never had a stick in between the legs that you have to try to go on top of. It's a lot easier.
What's the joint in the middle? I mean, how's each half linked?
So the whole thing is like a one single stick, and the joint in the middle it's like this. It doesn't go sideways like this. If you push one side, then they both go forward, or both go back.
It's a pivot?
It pivot, it swivel up and down like this.
Oh, so, okay, so it doesn't turn at all?
Correct.
Because otherwise it'd be reverse control between the...
Yeah, well there's one person when I went through this, she said, well, if I push, does it mean come back on your side? I mean, it's a normal question. I mean, that thing could be pivoting from the bottom, but no, they're together. So when you press on one side, they both go forward together. It's like a T-bar. If you go do some ski, that's what they've got from T-bar.
Well, it's like a joystick on a remote control.
Yeah, same thing. So that's for the cycling. The collective, it looks like a handbrake, it feels like a handbrake. We do not pull it up until the cable stretch. It's a very smooth control again to use. It goes up and down and at about that speed. What it does, the primary effect is that it controls your altitude. Raise the collective, helicopter goes up. When you reach the level you want to be, you bring it about in the middle. And when you want to come down, you bring down the collective and the helicopter will go down. How much of it? We use the manifold pressure. 30 inches is the normal atmospheric pressure, so when the engine doesn't run, it's at 30. You start the engine, you get a vacuum in the manifold pressure to about 10, 8, and the power that we use is 20 for straight and level flying, 23 for climbing, and 15 to go down. So I fly, it's time to climb, I go to 23 inches, the helicopter will climb. When I reach the level I want it to go, bring it down back to 20 inches, go straight and level. When it's time to descend, bring it down to 15 inches and the helicopter will descend. When I reach the bottom of where I want to be, bring it up to 20 inches. And that's about how much I'll be moving it every time.
Is there two controls in the collective?
Ha! Throttle. Throttle. The throttle is a grip like a motorcycle. For most helicopters today, you've got a governor that controls it. So this is a control we introduce sometime, but because most modern helicopters you don't have to do anything with the throttle, then we don't introduce it on the first lesson.
Oh.
So what actually happened is there's a governor with an electric motor that drives the grip, and you can feel it turn in your hand. So when you play with the collective, you have to make sure you do not jam the throttle, because if you do, you will actually override it. It is meant to be overridden. There's a clutch on it, and there are operations where you will decide to override, either because you want to practice something or the governor is not quick enough. There are operations where the governor will not follow the raise of the collective or the descent of the collective fast enough, so you'll override it. But most of the time you don't play with it. There's also a little switch at the end, the toggle switch. This is where you turn on and off the governor. So when you start the engine, you do manual throttle, like a car. When you're ready to take off, you just put it automatic, and the RPM will come to 104% and will remain there for the whole flight, regardless of what. So we do talk about the throttle. We don't have with this helicopter type to play with it. The people who saw us fly the Bell 47, that's fully manual. So you have to do it all. So whenever you change a control, the collective, you actually have to also play with the throttle. Altitude, we've got an altimeter, and we also have a vertical speed indicator that tells us we're climbing 500 feet a minute or descending 500 feet a minute.
You have to hold the collective throughout the whole flight?
That's a good question. This one has quite a bit of friction. There's friction here. It normally stays where it is. This is the only control you can actually let go, whilst this one you can't. This one you can let go. You have to be a bit more forceful when you use it, because there's quite a bit of friction, and you can also adjust the friction. But now it stays where it should. However, depending how old the helicopter is, etc. So some of them will crawl down, others will crawl up. But the other thing too is if you've got an engine failure in forward flight, you have 1.1 second to bring it down. Otherwise you cannot recover. So typically, well, we're talking here a full engine failure. Typically an engine, you'll feel it wants to go, but typically you leave your hand on it, because if something happens, you want to bring it down right away. But it will stay where you put it.
So you're alright to scratch your nose if you get an itch?
Yeah, not if you're low to the ground. If you're at 500 feet, you might do it. And if you take off on the takeoff run, you have just a second to do the correction. So you lose a 0.1 second, which
You just have to put up with an itchy nose.
yeah, yeah. And if you sneeze, if you have a fly, yeah, you can't do anything. Your hands stay on the controls.
So if you don't push it down, what typically happens to the helicopter?
You stall the rotor.
Ah, okay.
Third main cause of fatal accident in helicopter.
And then you just sink like a stone.
What's it called?
Auto rotation is
Auto rotation.
auto rotation is when you actually have had time to bring it down to the 1.1.
That's less than 15.
If you miss the 1.1 second, you don't even auto rotate.
Yeah, it was blown a bit too slow.
Yeah.
Right.
The next primary control. So 1, 2, 3. We don't talk a lot about this.
Question.
Yeah.
So, sorry, come back to collective. I understand the twist throttle and that's on the governor, but what actual control is that doing?
Ah, okay. No, that's a good question. It does two things at the same time. The first thing it does is it changes the pitch on the blades at the same time all over, regardless of the position in the plan. That's why they call it collective. And there's a disc, a swash plate, and there's a disc, and when you raise a collective, it pushes the plates up. and the blades, as they turn, will change the pitch and stay in that pitch. That's the first thing. Second thing is it opens a butterfly. So there's a correlation box, and as you pull on it, it opens a butterfly.
So when we say open the butterfly.
For the carburetors.
Oh right, okay.
You know,
So it's adjusting the throttle
yeah.
accordingly.
Yeah, but it's not that clever. There's a linkage that tries to understand where it should be. You need to play with
Fine tune.
Fine tune with the throttle.
Okay.
It's more like cruise control.
No, like a choke.
Yeah.
Does that have a difference whether you're flying at a very low altitude or very high altitude?
Yes, there is.
Because of the air pressure?
Correct,
and the
yeah.
air density?
So the correlation box is set up for the speed at which you would change it. So they just say normal flying you would go about that fast. If you go faster it doesn't follow through fast enough, so you have to give it a bit of a hand. High altitude, the correlation box doesn't know, so you'll need to help it a bit more. Yes?
It's calibrated in percent RPM. What it's 100% of what is that sort of cruising RPM, is it?
Well, so what happened with a lot of helicopters, in the past they used to use the real RPMs. All helicopters have the actual RPMs. And even for the power, a lot of helicopters these days, you don't have inches of pressure, they put percent. And the reason why is that whenever you change helicopter types, you don't have to relearn all the numbers.
Right.
So the RPM is always 100% instead of 425 on this helicopter and 330 on this other one. So that's why they went percent. The power is the same for most turbine helicopters, or the new one. 100% power is the maximum power you can pull from the helicopter. So when you change helicopter, because sometimes you have the same helicopter type with a different engine,
Yeah.
or they put weight in the tip of the blade, so whichever configuration, you, as a pilot, you change helicopter and you just go by percent.
Okay.
It's easier.
And what are the two? The E and R is one the rotor and the other little tail whizzer thing, is it?
Sorry,
No.
E?
What's E and R?
What's E and R? Yeah.
E is engine, R is rotor.
Oh, okay. So they're not.
So when you start the helicopter, it's here. When you start the engine goes to about 55% and the rotor is dead. And eventually they catch up when you open the clutch. So there's a clutch that will put the two together, and then the whole flight is kept this way. But if you've got an engine failure, it goes that way. And then this one is freewheeling for 1 second until you do something.
Until you drop the collector.
Sorry?
Until you drop the arm.
Yeah, drop the collector.
Pass. Within half a second.
1, 2, 3, 4. Pedals. It's actually two sticks like this in front of you at the bottom, obviously where pedals are in the car. And as you press one pedal, the other one comes back.
In case you get an engine failure, you can pedal.
You could.
It would be.
Then you need 1.1 or 1.5 seconds instead of 1. But when you press on one pedal, the other one comes back. Pushing on the two pedals at the same time serves the whole purpose. And you can't use them as footrests either, so you'll need to work. So the range is about that big. For a normal flight, a forward flight, you'll probably use about only 1 inch difference. And they're not lined up. Necessarily lined up. They could be anywhere. The sole purpose of the pedals in a forward flight is to balance the helicopter. Helicopter, blades turn this way, the nose wants to go the other way. There's another fan at the back, there's a small rotor at the back that keeps it straight. If you pull more power, you're going to create more torque, so the nose will want to go to the right. If you do nothing, you'll be flying this way. The problem with flying this way, it's not dangerous, but you'll be leaning on me, I'll be leaning on the door. The fuel is not level, we're not aerodynamic, we're using more power to go forward. So we want to keep the helicopter balanced at all times. The way we do it, we press on the pedal that brings the nose back to the front. How do we know we're not balanced? If full like this, we'll know right away. But there's also a ball like a level, and the ball will move if you're not level. We also have the most expensive piece of equipment on the helicopter, 2 wheelies at the front. And when you fly sideways, the willies goes on one side, and if you're flying the other side, the willies goes the other way. So we use the pedal to correct, and these are the willies at the front. That's the sole purpose for the pedals in the forward flight, and they will move about that much for the correction. What we've done is we've looked at the primary effect of the controls. So let's go through that again, plus let's look at what's going to be the secondary effect. Secondary effect is something that you get as a byproduct, not desirable, you don't want it, you need to correct it. We said if we put forward pressure on a cyclic, the nose goes down. The airspeed increase, and if we put aft pressure, the nose goes up, and the airspeed decreases. Secondary effect, what happens if I put a bit of forward pressure and I do this? I'm going to go down. There's two reasons. The flight path is down, so that's pretty obvious, but the real reason is you had a component here that was keeping you level, and you move forward, so you've got now a bit of power that brings you forward, and then you'll start descending. So the altitude will go down. If I'm going straight ahead at about 100 knots and I do a bit of, 100 kilometers an hour and put aft pressure, what's going to happen to my altitude if I do nothing else? I'll start climbing. Therefore, every time you change the configuration of the cyclic, you will need to use a collective to correct, providing you want to stay at the same altitude. What's going to happen to my RPM? I'll start with this one, it's easier to explain. When I do, if I put aft pressure on my cyclic, what's going to happen is I'm loading the disc. I'm putting more weight on the disc. If you think about it, if I was to brake the helicopter by putting a lot of aft pressure, the disc will brake the helicopter. The blades goes up. What happens when a skater brings his arm up?
Closer together.
Faster. Yeah.
So as soon as you put load on the blades, they go like this, and the RPM wants to race up. And the opposite will happen. As soon as you put a bit of forward pressure, it will go the other way, so the RPM will go down. If you don't have a governor that does all that for you, every time you move forward or back, the cyclic, you have to play with the RPM. Every time. Let's look at the collective now. We all agree that if I raise the collective, the manifold pressure will increase, my altitude will increase, and the other way around. What happened to my RPM? If I raise the collective and do nothing else, the RPM will want to go down, because I'm asking more power. This is where the governor will kick in and do it for me. If I don't have a governor, I'll have to crank it up. And the way the throttle is made in a helicopter, it's made so that as you bring it up, your hands actually turns it the right way to increase the RPM, and as you bring it down, it reduces the RPM. So when they designed when it was designed, they were using the elbow as a correlation box to change the RPM.
Does that mean the collective's in the middle between the two seats?
No.
If you operate it left or right
No,
hand,
there's
it won't
two.
that
There's two collective. There's two collective. Airplanes. In airplanes, they have a lot of controls that they share. In helicopter, everything is duplicated. And I think it was too hard when they first designed it for someone to actually change control when they fly. Whilst in an airplane, it doesn't seem to be a problem.
So where are the two collectives mounted? One on the left of one seat and one on the right of one seat?
No, it's always on the left. So a pilot does not change control, hand of control when they change side.
Okay.
Whilst in an airplane, if you fly Cessna, you have throttle here and the yoke here. If you change side, you have the other hand. They don't do that with helicopters. That's why a helicopter that's a two-seater at the front, the pilot is always at the right, because the left hand is the only hand you can let go, and you've got all the panels, the radio, the button, and everything you can play with your left hand. If it's a bench where you can sit 3 people, it's always, the pilot's always on the left, because there would be no place to put a collective between people. So the opposite, what happened to my attitude? Ah, that's an interesting one. Lesson number 7 or 8, the one that I showed you, that was with the ball that I flicked. This is where we learn why that's happening, but you'll have to trust me on this one. Whenever you bring up the collective, apart from gaining altitude, the nose will also want to go up. And faster you do it, more the nose will go up. And if you bring down the collective, the nose will want to come down. It's not that hard to explain why that's happening. It's quite obvious when we look at it, but this is what's happening. So as you bring up or down the collective, you have to play with this. Now remember, when I change the cyclic, I need to bring the collective up or down. And then when I change the collective, I need to play with the cyclic as well. So all that gets, when you start, you'll be doing one, the other, correct, and chase your tail. Eventually, you just do it. When I raise the collective, I put more power, so the nose wants to go to the right. So I'll have to put left pedal in. And the reverse happens for the other thing. So as I bring down the collective, the RPM wants to rise up. There's a limit of RPM you can reach, so you have to make sure you work on it, or the governor will do it for you. The attitude will change, so if when you bring down the collective, the nose will want to come down, and you'll have a yaw to the left, you'll need right pedal. On your first lesson, you'll understand all that, you'll see it happening, but you'll do one at a time. And you'll be chasing your tail and going back there. We all do that. Eventually, and what I tell everybody, and do the same thing too, kitchen chair in the kitchen, a plunger, a toilet plunger, organize a collective, practice at home. The hour that you do at home on a kitchen chair will save you thousands of dollars in your training. If you don't do it, then you'll sit down in a helicopter and then you'll waste a lot of time of not having developed a reflex. The throttle, open the throttle, RPM goes up, close throttle, RPM goes down. Pretty obvious. Manifold pressure, open the throttle, it increases. And open the throttle, more power, the nose, yaw to the right, then I need left pedal. Manifold pressure goes down, yaw to the left. Pedals. Left pedal, yaw to the left. Right pedal?
Right.
Yeah. What's happening with the RPM?
Probably down.
For which pedal?
Both.
Aha. No.
For one down.
So think about it.
Depends on the engine rotation, or the rotor rotation.
Yeah, so the rotor turns this way.
Want to go up and want to go down a little bit.
And which way do you think you make the engine work more? Is it by trying to come back the torque or going in the same direction as the torque?
So going with it.
When you go with it,
So
you
less
less
Do
power.
circles.
So when you press on the left pedal, you'll burn some of the engine RPM. 10% of the power is required when a helicopter hover just to drive the tail rotor. If you want to turn to the left, you'll need more RPM. So it will actually come down because you'll need more power. Indicated airspeed. I'll talk to you about this one after. Then if I go to the right, then the RPM will race up because I'm turning with the torque. So I'm not forcing against it. Indicated airspeed, down.
Because of the airflow?
Yeah, well there's two things here. There's an I here. I mean indicated airspeed. So this is what you read on the gauge.
Where does it get the input from?
Exactly, there's a pipe,
Yeah.
a stick at the front. So a pitot, and as soon as you're not flying straight into the wing, it doesn't matter which way you go, you're not reading the right speed. And when you go at 60 knots and you do a bit of yaw, the speed goes down to 20. It really drops quickly. If I remove the I, I look at the actual airspeed, forget about what I read. If I fly sideways, it won't fly as fast for the same power. Obviously, I could put a bit more power and fly faster on that side, but for the same flying configuration, if I press the pedal and go sideways, it will slow down a bit. But indicated airspeed, the pitot is no longer pointing at the front, pointing sideways, you lose the speed. This is what the dash looks like. If you don't take a picture of the dash, install it in front of your kitchen chair where you do your practice. Every time you'll go in a helicopter, you'll be looking, trying to find where the instruments are. You're going to waste a lot of time. And I had my first helicopter crash at home. We had a,
That's the place to have it, isn't it?
yeah. We had an enclosed balcony where we used to live at Berkeley Weekend. And I took a picnic chair, a folding chair, and I had installed a collective on the side, all attached that I could play, and I had a planter with the phone books and the yellow pages and the pedal and everything organized. I had the dash, I was learning everything. And then after my 20 minutes of practice, I decided that was enough. So I went into the kitchen, well, I went back into the living room, the patio door was closed. So I just walked straight in the pretty strong. I was bleeding here. And so yeah, but that's the best case of crash.
Are the instruments layouts pretty much the same on most helicopters?
No.
No.
Depends how the manufacturer wants to make it.
Yeah, there's space configuration. Some of them are up and down, some of them are sideways. And even for, let's say, the Robinson 22, which this one is, some of them have more instruments, so they've got a bigger dash.
Yeah.
But typically, if you go to a school, they'll be pretty much the same. I remember you guys had a funny one, Connie. They had 3 or 4 aircrafts the same. It's called a Robin, but one of the airspeed indicator was reverse. Instead of going up that way, it was going up the other way. It was quite confusing.
Europeans.
Maybe, yeah. They used to be made in France and then they got made in Canada. But so in the Robinson, you've got the RPM that should always stay at about there. So the governor will keep it at 104%. You've got your power here, the airspeed. You've got your altitude and the vertical speed.
They don't give you GPS airspeed, that's your speed over ground?
Well, GPS airspeed is of no use at all for flying in terms of aerodynamics. It's only good for navigation, but for the aerodynamics, the aircraft doesn't know there's wind. So the GPS is based on the wind.
GPS doesn't know the airspeed either.
No. So, yes?
You didn't quite explain what the pedals do to the tail rotor.
So what the pedals does to the tail rotor, very good question, it actually changed the pitch of the blade. So the blades at the back, they have variable pitch, and as you press one pedal or the other, it will actually change the pitch. So the RPM is constant for the main rotor, also constant for the tail rotor. And all that is geared up all together. So when you lose,
they've got a direct connect, have they?
yeah.
Yes.
So when you lose an engine, the two things still drive together. So if this turn, the other one turn. If you've got a mechanical failure, that's different. Like if you
Linkage.
your box that.
Yeah.
Yes.
What about that one in the Atlantic? Lightning had hit the tail rotor and blew the gearbox off the
Yeah.
off the tail and
That happens. Yeah.
going to massive yaw anti-rotation.
Yeah.
That happens.
That happens.
Try and fly with it.
The air exercise today, or whenever you come, it's a no stress lesson. So I will have the stress of having you flying. It's a no stress lesson. I'll organize everything. I will prepare the aircraft. I'll do the radio call, the taxi, and everything. And basically, what we will do, or what I will do, is when we sit in the helicopter, I will go through the whole checklist. Normally, you use a checklist. I know it by heart, so I'll say everything I do. so that it gives you an idea of what you will need to do eventually. And when you do it, you'll use a checklist, so it's not difficult, but you'll have an idea. So what we'll do is we'll take off, and as soon as we are established in height, I will demo each of the control, then I'll ask you to follow me through, and then I will give you the control. And the way we do it is we do it in this order. We'll do the pedal first. So I will do a demonstration. I will ask you to come with me on the pedal, we'll do it together, then I'll give you the pedal. When we finish with the pedal, feet flat on the ground, then we'll go with the collective. We'll climb together, we'll descend together, and then I'll ask you to climb and descend. When you're done with the collective, you let go the collective, then we will do a cyclic together. I will demonstrate, so what I'll do is I'll say 60 knot, look outside, 80 knot, look outside, bring it back to 60, then I will give you the control. The way I give you the control is the best way to fly, the easiest way to fly is to actually lean on your leg. Don't try to fly like this, it won't work. You lean on your leg, and what I'll do is, because remember it's a T-bar, I will actually drop the control in your hand. Where I will not drop the control in your hand, I will bring it somewhere, and this is where you have to grab it. And be very careful, a lot of people when they grab it, they actually put their hand where it is, and they pull on it. By closing the hand, just by pulling on the control, half an inch will make us climb. It's very, very, very twitchy. So set your hand where it is and keep it there. And I'll say handing over, you'll say my cyclic, just look outside and keep it there. And when you become good with the cyclic, we will start mix and match. And eventually you'll have the 3 controls. And if you're good about it, and if you're doing well, we'll come back together and you'll do the flying. There's a lot of people who can't do it. There's a lot of people that on the way back, they come back just with the cyclic. That's the most flying type control. So for a lot of people, if they get too overwhelmed in the first lesson, then they just come back with a cyclic. And you know, some people can't do it on the first lesson, and they're not necessarily the people who have the most problem to learn. A lot of people are very, very good at the first lesson, and they get so enthusiastic about it when they come second lesson, it's all doesn't work anymore. So we'll have to see how you go. Competency standard. What we're expecting is to be able to keep a straight and level flight at plus or minus 5 knots. So if you look at the horizon and you keep it at the same place, you'll have no problem at all. We'll expect that you can keep a straight and level flight and maintain 100 feet, plus or minus 100 feet. Threat and error management. Very, very, very important. This is one of the most important things these days in training. 83% of the accident happen because of pilot error. So most of the training now is, a lot of the training is on this. First thing is, we have to know at all times who has a control. If I have the control, say my aircraft. When you have the control, you have to say my aircraft. This first lesson, you might not be as used to this. Eventually, you will get used to it together. And then even 747 pilots and 380s, they all do that still. We have to know at all times who's got the control. I'll ask you to follow me through and never ever let go of control without my permission. If you must let go of control because you need to scratch or you need to reset yourself on the seat, you have to tell me. I'll take over, it'll become my aircraft, and you can do whatever you want, and I'll give it to you. I may do some correction, it doesn't mean I'm taking over. So what happens very often is you have the control and then all of a sudden we're getting a bit crooked and then I'm doing a bit of correction and so if I correct you, I'm not taking over. I'm only taking over if I'm telling you. Small, slow, gentle input. And if we're starting to fly like this and I'm not reacting, it's probably because it's okay. Don't jerk it back to where you think it should be. And I'll do all the flying below 500 feet. So on the first flight, on the first couple of flights, as we come back, As soon as we reach 500 feet, I'll take over all the control and I'll say I've got control. Yes?
If you do that quick movement back,
Yeah.
would that do any damage to the blades?
Funny you ask. That's one of the other things I'd like to talk. We're finished with this, so we're ready to go flying. So this would be your first lesson. Mast bumping. It's coming a bit to what we're talking about.
Well, that's those big radio antennas that you go around, isn't it?
Yeah, you could do that. You could do that. Anyone see that?
Tower racing.
Sound barrier.
Blades. So this is a helicopter. We don't often refer to a helicopter rotor as blades. We call them discs. So this is why all this, the little thing we use for classroom, we've got disc. But if you look at the blades, let's say we've got a 2-blade helicopter. The blade turns at about 300, 350 RPM, 400 RPM, depending on the helicopter. But the helicopter we fly, the tip of the blade turns at 400 knots. And the root of the blade turns at 40 knots. This means that as the blade turns, you get 400 knots and then it reduces and then starts to increase again. Let's say the rotation is in that direction. Then I go forward. So that was, the blue one is here stationary, I haven't moved. Then I go forward at 80 knots. So we all know what happened. That 80 knots, the tip of the blade here will feel that 80 knots plus the 400 knots. So this will be 480 knots, and this bit here will feel a 40 plus the 80, 120. We all agree with this?
Ooh, ooh. You've got massive lift on that side.
We're getting there.
Huh.
What's going to happen with my 80 plus 40, 40 the other way?
Same reaction.
Cancels.
No, it cancels here. This one is negative. So when a helicopter goes at 80 knots, there's a part of the blade here that has the wind reverse on the blade. This is why, if you ever notice a helicopter, you will see that the blade at the root, they cut it. So there's the grip, but not only that, the back of the blade is cut differently to be able to not be impacted too much by the wind coming the other way. So what's going to happen here is like 480 knots, 320. Nothing here and negative there. This is the lift formula. The lift equals coefficient of lift, which has few components on it, but one of them is the angle of attack. Half rho, rho is the air density, v square and surface of the wing. Bigger wing, more lift. And what's interesting us now is the velocity. So as Dominic was saying, we have an issue. The issue is when the helicopter goes forward at 80 knots, if you put all these numbers there, you will see that the lift here is way much bigger than the lift there. The helicopters don't fly that way. So flapping, flapping is required. So flapping is when my wing goes forward, my blade goes forward into the wind, it goes up. As it goes up, it will produce less lift. When it comes back the other way, it will go down, then it will produce more lift. And it will flap until it becomes in equilibrium.
How's that controlled?
By the flapping hinges. Now, this is a very long mass briefing that I'm trying to shorten by just showing some of the basic, but if you look on YouTube, you'll find a video where they've put a camera that turns with the blades, and you can actually see it flap as it goes around. So flapping is required.
Is it the sound we hear?
Now, well, part of it is, but no.
Wasn't that on the Huey?
Yeah, the UE is very, very noisy.
Yeah, that's the
There's
sound
black
barrier on the
slapping,
tip, isn't it?
So the interesting thing about the flapping is, remember what happened when the blade goes up? Do you remember?
Oh, yeah.
Faster.
It
It
goes
goes
faster.
faster. So the blade that's going forward, as it flaps up, it wants to go faster.
The other one can't catch up.
When it's time to come back, it goes longer, therefore it goes slower. So the blades, if they are like this, they'll be like this. It's called a hook effect. So what they do is, in a three-blade system, they have what we call a fully articulated system. The blade is attached here, is allowed to flap up and down, forward and back. Lead and lag, it's called. So as the blade goes forward and goes up, it leads, and when it's coming back, it will actually lag. We also have a system we call semi-rigid, where it's a seesaw arrangement. How is that going to ever be able to lead and lag without braking? Is a question you should ask. And I've got the answer. But I'll show you a combination. This is what they use today in a lot of new helicopters. They use elastometric type plastic that allows all sort of twisting. But let's go back to our semi-rigid. How can I make this not having a problem with the flapping up and down without braking? It's on the slope. Okay?
So the load's not right on the actual tip.
So you see, instead of becoming shorter when it lifts, because it moves that way, it stays the same length.
Oh,
It
right.
gets even a bit longer than it would be. See? As it comes down where it should be slowing down, it's becoming shorter, so it goes faster. So by doing a right calculation, we can find the actual underslung requirement to make sure that as it spins and flaps up and down, it doesn't want
Cancels
to,
a bit.
Yeah. So it doesn't snap in half. These are the easy ones. The fully articulated that goes in all the direction are the difficult one, expensive one to do. That's the easy one. The day they found that by finding the right angle for the underslung would work well, then that was an easy one. Problem though, what if
You don't want that.
who on earth would ever design a control that would allow you to go that far?
The first guy.
Maybe. Or who would ever design a car that when you turn the wheel, the steering wheel, the tires actually rub on the thing? It's been done many times. It's been done many times. Especially when you change your wheels and you put wider wheel. Yeah?
The Triumph Herald was the worst.
Yeah, a lot of them were.
The
So,
front wheel, one side used to go right angles,
yeah,
so you'd be pushing the tyre.
so nobody would design a helicopter that does that. So let's look at a couple of things. My helicopter is actually, let's say, half a ton to 2 or 3 tons, hanging under a single knot from the blade, and it's rolling like this. And because I've got a tail rotor here that happened to be lower than the point of rotation, what happened is it does that. So every helicopter that I design, there's a skid low. However, for a big 3-ton helicopter, or nice helicopter, that wasn't really acceptable. So what they've done is, they've actually lifted the tail. They put another transmission or gearbox here to turn 45 degrees or whatever they need, and they bring it up higher so that it stays straight. You will see this helicopter where they've also given an angle. The tail rod, instead of being straight, is crooked so that it doesn't push that way. So far so good. So the helicopter roll against here. What if, for whatever reason, I didn't have my helicopter anymore hanging from the top? What if it was free flowing for a moment? what would happen? I still have the truss here that's pushing on the side. The helicopter, instead of turning on its point by where it's hanging from, would turn around its center of gravity. So if I wasn't hanging it, then it would want to turn around its center of gravity. Remember this nice design to bring this higher. What does it do here?
Raises the
Moves
centre
the
of
centre of gravity further up.
Well, no, it's leaving the center of gravity there, but it's putting the moment higher, so the lever is higher, so it will turn even more. Why would I ever be in a position where I've got 0 G? There's many cases, but the two most frequent ones.
Free fall? Some sort of downdraft.
I'm flying, and then all of a sudden I've got a downdraft. So I'm not on the seat anymore, the seat belt is keeping me there, so I've got 0 gravity. All of a sudden the helicopter said, hey, I have no reason to be hanging from here. My center of gravity is my point of reference.
Okay, tips.
Start rotating. The second one, which is the most frequent one that causes what we call a mass bumping, is called a pushover. What happens if you drive in a small country road, you know, along a river, and then you go to the top of the hill and you go down the hill. When you go to the top of the hill, everything in the car, you know, come up. So it's called a pushover. In an airplane, you do that a lot. There's video on YouTube where you see the dog floating in the aircraft. And so you just go into pushover.
That's how you climb from the back seat to the front seat.
Well, yeah, you could do that too.
Push up.
So in a helicopter, if you, a two-bladed helicopter, or any helicopter, if you do a pushover, you will actually get to a 0 G, or a low G, or you could even go negative G. So as soon as you do a pushover, the helicopter is no longer attached to it, technically, and it has no reason to rely on this. It's now using its center of gravity, and the helicopter will try to run to the roll to the right side. Remember this design where this could be higher, which won't help. But the other thing, what do you think happens to a helicopter when you push over? Does it stay straight? If you do a pushover, it goes like this. So you've got that nice design that brings the tail higher, and then you've got the pushover that brings it even more higher.
Again.
So you've got this lever that will just turn your helicopter. Bad news is, you're not connected to this, remember? So this will not even follow you. So the helicopter will roll, but
It'll try and break everything off.
it's not attached to it. What do you think the pilot's reaction is when that thing starts to turn to the right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Stick to the left. The cyclic to the left.
So they push it just slightly to the left, but guess what? This is still not attached, technically. It is attached, but it's not holding the weight on it. So the G's decide, yeah, I'll go that way. Tucking. So to recover, what a pilot must do is put aft pressure on the cyclic and then slowly correct the roll. By putting aft pressure on the cyclic, you will reload the disc, so the helicopter will hang again from the disc, then you will be able to control. There's a 25-minute 1960 video from the military in US that explains all that, with all the pictures, and these are the years where they used to speak very slowly, explain the thing 2 or 3 times. A very good video to watch if you want to see it.
YouTube?
Yeah, YouTube. The other thing too is people used to like flying contour. Helicopter, you fly low, you follow the mountains, or you follow the, and they've had quite a few accidents before they realized what was happening. They thought they got shut down, or they had mechanical breakdown or something. Then they realized the mass was caught, and it took them a little while to realize that it was actually pilot induced. And flying contour was doing it.
There's no mechanical stop other than the mast?
There is a mechanical stop. That's the mechanical stop that actually killed the mast.
Oh.
Well, because there's a stopper,
Yeah.
when you test it and everything, you know, there's a static stop, but there's also a physical one. But eventually, you know,
Always turn the same direction.
no.
That'd be confusing, wouldn't it?
Yes. American aircraft turn this way,
Oh no.
European aircraft
In
turn
the northern
this way.
hemisphere, they turn one way. And
No.
Only when they're going down the plug
No.
up.
And it's same thing for airplane. Airplane, the prop don't turn the same way. The British aircraft turn one way, everybody else the other way. And as a pilot, the controls are different. And the reaction, if you have an engine failure, are different, etc., etc. And Americans have been buying European aircraft, where they've asked the European to put an engine that turns the other way, because they want the pilot to learn with the blades the other way.
You reckon they could standardise that? That would be
Yeah,
basic.
so who's going to win?
Yeah, it's
It's,
the
you
old
know, it's
VHS
like-
and leader.
yeah. So that's mass bumping. Dynamic rollover. Oh, by the way, mass bumping is cause number 4 of fatal accident. Cause number 4. First one is wire strike. Second one is weather. Third one is stall, rotor stall. So this is where the rotor goes too slow and then eventually someone pulls on it or you, instead of pushing. And dynamic rollover. Mass bumping. Dynamic rollover. This is another interesting one. This one is not typically fatal. Not typically, but you lose, yeah, you lose a bit. So our helicopter rolls around the disc, remember? So when I've got my helicopter, it goes like that. A lot of people don't do this, but now they do this. That's until I go sideways and I hit something. Typical thing you hit on the grass, you haven't seen it, it's a bit of a peg. A peg, very, very frequently they have pegs, or taxiway lights. So what happens is as soon as you hit something, the point of rotation is no longer this, it becomes that. So now the helicopter turns around this.
That wasn't good.
Problem is, as a pilot, if that's happening in the air, you correct with the cyclic. If you get this, your reaction might be to actually try with the cyclic. If I do left cyclic,
That'll make it work.
it doesn't change anything. In fact, if you lift your finger, and if I go this way, and if I go like this and I try to push left, is it worse or better? You see, this is what the cyclic does. If you've got your finger there, when I get there, it's actually doing this. It's not pulling it the other way. So, if the reaction from the pilot is to do left cyclic, it does nothing. The reaction from the pilot is to raise, saying, let's go out of here. What you're actually doing is you're actually making it worse because you're pulling more.
It's got a vector, that one.
Yeah. The only way to correct this is to lower the collective. So as a pilot, you have to develop the reflex that if ever you hit something, as long as you know that you've hit something, that you need to bring down the collective and land back. If ever the center of gravity passed that line, you're committed. Apparently the real work starts with F, but
You're a little nod.
there's a couple of things there. If the center of gravity have passed, you're done. If your speed of rotation is too high, you will be committed even before the center of gravity reach. So if you're moving sideways slowly and it's happening, it's a lot easier to recover than if you're too fast, because of the momentum that you get. Even if the center of gravity hasn't reached, you might actually be committed.
Has anybody tried to ever run it upside down and cut the lawn?
They do it a lot with remote control aircraft. Yeah, but with expensive one, I think they. So I've got here a couple of videos from YouTube, and it's not supposed to be funny, but it's not. It's not, because there's quite a bit of money involved and videos. But just to give you an idea,
to do with beer bottles?
Oh, you would have a same product with a beer bottle.
Whoa. Ah!
Nobody's hurt.
Oh.
Look at the blade.
Yeah, just landing.
Was that side wind or what?
No, that's just getting hooked.
Getting hooked.
He got
Getting hooked on these runners.
Yeah, the skid get caught on the concrete.
You should just cut power at that stage, I take it, shouldn't you? Because if you're on the ground, you might as well.
So there's no pilot in that.
Yeah, there's two of them.
I still don't quite understand what happened.
Dynamic rollover. He got caught onto the concrete. The skid didn't move.
And he just
You
kept
didn't cut
going.
the power,
Just
so-
rolling.
So he would have had to bring down the collective, but he didn't. He probably tried to correct by moving the collective to the right, and the cyclic, sorry, to the right, didn't work. Now the thing is, you know the skid that grab you on the side, if you were forward, because the skid go up, you would probably skid. And the concrete where it is not nice,
Yeah.
so it's like a hedge. For,
Yeah.
Now, the other one I've got is not as easy to see, but I'll show you what's happening there before so that you can understand when you see it. Just remember this, the helicopter pivots from where it's holding from the disc. So you'll see this helicopter will actually go like this. So what's happening with this poor guy is he doesn't know, he's stuck on the grass. The skid somehow grabbed some grass and he doesn't know, and he's starting to come to the back. He got very lucky, he pulled the collective and he got the skid out of the grass, and you can see the dirt coming out. He got lucky. But look at when it gets out, when the skid gets out of the grass, you'll see the helicopter goes like this. It's easier when I've got the other one, but it goes sort of,
Swings.
yeah, not swing sideways
No.
like this.
It rocks from the Jersey one.
So if the skid didn't come out of the grass, then it would have been the same situation than the other one we just saw.
Wow. Wow, he's quick on the...
That's a very expensive helicopter, that's a Cobra.
See how he tilted that blade.
It's a missile firing helicopter,
Yeah,
I take it.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a 2-blade. These are old now, they've got 4 blades.
Oh, some of those accidents, I love watching them.
Do you show that?
See how stupid some people can get.
Yeah, we do. So,
Especially when you see jet aircraft sitting on their thrust
yeah,
and just going, yike, which way are you going to go?
so I'm done. So, thank you.
I've got a question for you.
I'll cover that here if you don't mind.
Right?
Who asked a question?
I was going to ask you a
Oh.
question. When it's like anything, after a while, you sort of become skilled at things, okay? And things happen automatically.
Yeah.
You know, is it a very long process with flying those?
It's like anything else. As long as
sort of
you,
automatic, you know.
as long as you practice.
Hmm?
As long as you practice, yeah.
Mm.
So if you have any more questions, just come here and we'll do it. I can show you more video if you want to see more video. And thank you all.
Thank you, Eve. Fantastic.